At some point I was like, God, if I have this man for a father or a husband, I don't know what it will be like, but I shall know that at the end of the day, you work out everything to, fit into your will and purpose. And if God allows it to be so, I mean, He will use it to work out His purpose in me, and Him to will come to the saving grace of God, because I just couldn't figure it out. Hi guys, you are welcome to True Life Journey with Goodness Godfrey. To start with, how have you all been? I want to trust that you are making progress in your love walk with God. You are walking with Him one day at a time. From my end, I am fine. I am doing well by the grace of God. Jesus is helping me. Of course, the road is very narrow, but I've entrusted myself into the hands of Jesus to keep and preserve me in Him, and I trust you're doing so too. And for those of us who are not in a relationship with Jesus yet, I just want to trust that you're being very intentional about doing that, because that's not a decision to joke with. Alright, today I'll be sharing a couple of things I learned from the Bridge series. It's a movie that has been showing on Adegboyega Gospel Movies here on YouTube. Yeah, so that movie has been showing for a couple of weeks now, and the season 2 just came to a conclusion, and I thought, I just must share this because it turned out to be quite helpful for me and my spouse, and I feel like everyone can actually glean from it. So I just be sharing a couple of things I picked up from there. I won't be able to exhaust it because there is much there, but I'll share the much I can here, and I'm hoping that it spurs you to run to his channel and watch the movie. Do so trusting God to help you, so that it doesn't just become entertainment, but something that you can actually pick one or two things from. So there are a couple of characters I would like to talk about, but before I delve into that, I'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere. So the first character we will be looking at is Baba Soldier, in the person of Dr. Omoniyi. He's an ex-soldier who almost always uses the military approach in every situation. He loves to be hyped, as the only soldier who killed a particular number of persons during the World War. He's also known in the movie for using the phrase, I will gun you down. And that's usually funny. In relation to that, I saw something on his YouTube account that cracked me up. Apparently, someone who had watched the Bridge movie and got used to that phrase also happened to view that particular movie I was viewing on his account. And the very first scene of the movie on his own account showed where he was actually explaining to people why it is important to like and comment on videos to aid in a broader scope of visibility. And I think the person commented saying he has subscribed already so that he is not gunned down. Immediately I saw that, I just knew that this person had watched the Bridge movie. It's really, really funny how he uses that phrase. Also, he's known to be very temperamental and almost always falls out with everybody, from his wife to his son and daughter. In fact, there is this lady who always comes to the house, a friend of his wife, actually a friend in quotes, let me put it that way, of his wife, who is always coming to the house, and she's known for gossiping. That attitude just turns him off, and for that reason he doesn't hide the fact that he doesn't appreciate this woman's presence. One thing about his character that was quite baffling to me was with respect to him being anti-Jesus or anything that concerns Christ. And it took the unveiling of subsequent episodes to understand what happened, because for some reasons I just kept having the feeling that I think this character must have known the Lord in years past. Something must have happened, and it turned out to be so, because he stated that two things happened before he went for the war that led to being shot. He had gone to God and prayed to God to take him and bring him back in one piece without anything happening. But it was there and then that he was shot, and it resulted in him limping all his life, and he does not understand how God would have allowed that to happen when he had pleaded with God for mercy and help. Also, that when he came back and was in the hospital, from being in the hospital over a period of time to being discharged, nobody from the church came to look out for him. I mean, those were the two reasons why he did not want to have anything to do with God. But the primary things he forgot was that God would have allowed him to be killed during the war. God has his ways of answering our prayers, and we must learn to be grateful for all that God does for us. The fact that he didn't lose his life was something he wasn't seeing, right? And with relation to expecting so much from people, I've come to understand the importance of not expecting too much from people, because your hopes will be dashed. The only person our eyes must be fixed on is Christ. Nobody else, nothing else. Christ and Christ alone. If we are having expectations, there should be an alignment with the will and purpose of God, and our expectations should be channeled to Christ. He will determine what we have and what we do not have. But in the same light, I still want to say that it is actually wrong for us as Christians not to look out for our siblings in the faith. I mean, that's why we're a body. Because when I was thinking about the whole thing, I was literally looking at a real life situation, how that will be, and it feels bad. It could actually feel bad. Let's make it a point of duty to reach out to those around us, especially those in the faith, to encourage. You don't know what a simple text message or a call will do. It will go a long way to encourage someone to keep pressing. How much more someone that was sick and in the hospital for over a period of time. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I literally saw reason with him, but at the same time, it does not give us the right to become anti Jesus or anything that's related to God. We must learn to be thankful, and to be in a state where you expect less from people is to be in a place where you have peace and rest with yourself and God. Now, just so I don't spend so much time on his character, because there's too much to be said and I don't want to unravel everything there is. In fact, I can't. If I do, there won't be so much to look forward to for those who haven't seen the movie and would love to. So I think I'll just end there for Baba Soja's character, and I'll leave you with the option of going to check his channel for the entire movie. If you're struggling with finding the channel, I'll leave one of the links to the Bridge movie in my description, so you can just get it from there. Now, moving on to the character of his wife. Her character, on the other hand, is an embodiment of virtue, right? Her husband being a hard nut to crack is a whole lot on one hand. But through the series, I literally saw this woman, apply wisdom in relating. And, who she is, her personality literally left a heightened desire for the life and conduct of the Proverbs 31 woman. It literally stirred up that desire, because it was already there, but it touched something inside of me that made me go back to craving at a heightened degree the life and conduct of the Proverbs 31 woman, because literally that's how I see her in the movie. In fact, in the movie, there was a particular scene that stuck to me. There were many things that happened, but this very one just couldn't leave my memory. And that was a scene where her daughter-in-law got a shop for her to, sell provision and other things that people will most likely need. And when they took her to the place where the shop was, with so much gratitude in her heart, she didn't expect it. So with so much gratitude in her heart, she literally fell down on the floor and started praying for her children, her son and her daughter-in-law. You would not believe what her husband did. I'm like, at some point I was like, God, if I have this man for a father or a husband, I don't know what it will be like, but I shall know that at the end of the day, you will work out everything to, fit into your will and purpose. And if God allows it to be so, He will use it to work out His purpose in me, and Him too will come to the saving grace of God, because I just couldn't figure it out. Do you know that this man just shouted at her to stand up? Like, he literally snarled at her to stand up. And why must she roll on the ground? Does she know whose wife she is? And all of that kind of expression. He believes in customs and traditions. You hear him make statements like he's an Ekiti man and that kind of thing. His character is just something else completely. He's a hard nut to crack, but the main thing right now is the character of his wife and how she handles life situations. It's really commendable, and her character is worthy of emulation based on what I see in God's word. Moving on from Baba Soja's wife, the next character we're looking at is Otumba and his wife, the parents of Louisa. Louisa was the young lady that Otumba's son Abiyami got married to. And I can't begin to tell you in this video what transpired, the issues that came up just because these two young adults were to get married. In fact, I leave that for you to unravel as you see the movie. It was a tussle, but eventually God had his way. With respect to the characters on ground, Luisa's parents are not born again. They do not know the Lord, or from my observations or from what I picked from the movie, Luisa's dad, that is Otumba, has a better perspective to life than her mother does. She on the other hand is a whole lot to deal with. At some point I was just thinking, if someone like her gets married to Baba Soja, it will be fight day and night. Alright, but in this case her husband was on the calm side. Like I said, I feel like he had a better perspective to life than she did, because on a general scale her character described a woman who is very particular and interested about her status in the society, forgetting that she came from a humble background, and the reason why she could be classed among the societal people was just by virtue of her husband and who he was in the society. She also didn't appreciate the quiet, sober life, or was one that was given to partying and the likes. In fact, when it was time for her daughter Luisa to get married, her husband was of the opinion that she should be allowed to make her choice based on her convictions. But she wasn't okay with that, because she had a picture of whom she was expecting. She had a picture of who she was expecting her daughter to settle down with, one of those with a name, supposedly. And I think on one of such occasions, the husband had to remind her that you didn't have a name, yet I married you. That literally stood out for me, and that sent a very strong message down. I feel like it hit, even though that didn't change her mindset or her perspective to things. And also, she was fond of looking down on those who were staying with her. I mean, the whole series was something. She talks with disdain. She feels like you're just there and you're nothing. She had this thing about her. But I liked the way she interpreted her role. She's a very good actress. I've known her. The very first movie I saw her acting is Another Alternative by Lad Tem, and I mean, that was where I picked interest in her. I also saw her in Man Down and a couple of other movies, but this was another movie she acted in, and you need to go see it yourself. She would crack you up because some aspects of her role are quite hilarious. She's quite funny, but her character is not something to emulate. Not until she eventually got saved because of something that happened to her husband. He was sick and God in his mercies intervened. I'll leave the rest for you to unravel in the movie. Moving on from them, we'll be looking next at the character of Ayogbami and Louisa. Ayogbami is the son to Baba Soldier, while Louisa is the daughter to Otumba and his wife. They were convinced that they were both God's will for each other, but for some reason Baba Soldier was angry with his son for deciding to go for a spouse amongst the wealthy. He was upset with his son for not choosing a wife amongst those within his class. And also the mother of Louisa, like I said earlier, had issues with her choice of whom she intended to spend the rest of her life with. In fact, many issues came up as a result of their decisions, but one thing that actually stood out was the fact that they were united, and in the spirit of unity the will of God prevailed and they got married. Well, as newlyweds, a couple of things they're coming up, struggles here and there with communication, anger, control. There was also the issue of submission amidst other things. And that struggle was there from the very beginning, but in line with the mercies of God, He brought someone their way that was trustworthy enough for them to confide in, and in return God used him to speak to them, counsel them. In fact, throughout the entire season he was quite involved, helping them where the need arose, and they were also able to make adjustments, and that part to a large extent was settled. Now, like I said earlier, Baba Soldier is quite temperamental, and so is his son. In fact, they always had issues amongst all the members of Baba Soldier's family. Him and his son fell out the most. They were always having issues with each other, and I think because of how temperamental Ayogbami was, it was a bit difficult for his wife to open up on something that had transpired with the person her mother wanted her to get married to. I think they had a relationship in quotes ongoing from the beginning before she got saved, and in the process she got pregnant for him and lost the baby. I think it was a miscarriage, and by the mercies of God she got saved. But because of how temperamental Ayogbami was, it was difficult for her to open up to him. And after a few years into the marriage, this guy came back, taunting this lady and asking for certain things that the mouth can't even mention. It's ridiculous, right? At some point I was wondering, how do you come after someone is married? Are you okay? Are you well? How do you pursue someone is married and you're asking for what in fact even the ears should not hear about it? And if you see how he went about this thing. At some point I was asking myself, is this guy real? If we go by how he kept coming after her in the very first season of the movie, you would think this guy was the perfect guy, because it felt so cool, you know. He looked all perfect, so fine, tall, you know, those qualities that people would firsthand go for without considering the internal aspect of the relationship. He seemed to have a lot of them: the money, the height, he was cute, and all of that. And he seemed to, you know how to show love in that sense. But this was the same person that was acting like, I don't know what word to use to describe him. It was quite appalling. And I was like, this is how they roam around, professing love and acting all nice. Just give them an opportunity, or let things not go their way. They turned into something else. It was really bad. And I sort of had to just brace up and open up. She rather kept it a secret, and from there it led to one scene into another scene. She kept telling lies to cover up, she kept pretending and all of that. It was really bad. But at the end of the day, help came for them, and when the scene was exposed, they were able to, you know, jointly overcome what was before them and the threats that she had, even in relation to her life. Just to avoid this getting too long, I'll end here, but let me wrap it up by saying that I also admire the way she looked out for her husband's family. In most cases, the trend I see looks like when a bride and groom gets married, it just feels like, oh, the house automatically belongs to the bride's people, and you barely see the groom's people or the groom's family coming there often. I had some reservation to that, because I felt attention should be given to members of both families, because the new family is comprised of a child from one family and another child from another family. But in this case, although I know that her own parents are well-to-do in the movie and her husband's family are not, but the fact that she even took it upon herself to work with her husband to ensuring that things are made lighter and better for her husband's people is one thing. And also, even if her family were not as wealthy as they were, I feel that if that's the case in a normal life situation, attention should be given to both families. The help rendered to the bride's family is also necessary for the help rendered to the groom's family. That way it's proportional, you know. So that's just my little take there, but I really appreciate her character in the movie and how she went all out to ensure that her husband's family are comfortable to a large extent and doing well. And finally, on the characters in this movie, we have Bose, Frida, and Abike. They're all served in Otumba's house, and one thing I picked from their roles in the movie is this. First of all, Bose is a Christian and she's serving in Otumba's house. Frida isn't, and Frida was quite problematic. Bose was obviously senior to her, but she wasn't respectful. But one thing that stood Bose out was her ability to maintain calm in the midst of arising issues and, you know, find her way out. And eventually, the way she conducted herself in that house led to the salvation of Frida. She eventually got married and left, although she established a very strong relationship with Louisa. In fact, she was very helpful to Louisa till she got married. She was even the one who kept encouraging her to unravel the secret she was keeping away from her husband to him, because it would be terrible for him to find out from someone else and not from her, that is Louisa, directly. Now, coming back to the maids in the house, when she left, Frida became the one in charge, and Otumba's wife needed to get someone, so she got Abike. Abike came in, and she was everything troublesome. Like, it was as though Frida was having a taste of what she did to Bose from Abike, you know. And I mean, it wasn't funny, but she had learned and she was holding it together. I mean, Abigail was something else. She was so problematic. You know, this kind of people that live a pretentious life on social media, claiming to be who they are not. She steals from money to soup to meat. I mean, everything unthinkable. That was what, you know, Abike was. She was really problematic. And the very last straw that broke the camel's back was something that happened in the house. But I can't even go into details because the video is already long. But God used that to bring about the salvation of her soul. And that just made me understand that as Christians, we are supposed to be the light everywhere. In fact, if you're a worker, a student, wherever you are, you're first a Christian in that place, and that is what should guide every other thing you do. Assuming, okay, Bose, who is professing to be a believer, drops the garment she's supposed to put on, drops the Christ she's supposed to put on in that house, and, you know, responds to everything Frida does, there would be no way she would be able to communicate Christ to her, and she would have left that house most likely without, you know, any trace of Jesus in her life. But because of the fact that God helped her and she made use of the grace of God, you know, to live the life of Christ in the house, Frida was saved, and also it led to the salvation of Abike, who came much later. So I just encourage, based on what I got with respect to their characters, that we should be very deliberate about living the life of Christ wherever we find ourselves. Wherever we find ourselves, we are first Christians before whatsoever we are there for comes into the picture. Well, I think I'll stop here. The second season of The Bridge ends with Baba Soldier's daughter coming back from NYSC, and, you know, in the spirit of joy and excitement, she informs her parents that, oh, she met someone during service and he proposed marriage, and the question asked was, where is he from? At the moment she said he is from the east, the joyful mood in the house turned sour, and I'm really looking forward to what will happen in the third season of that movie. But it's actually been very beautiful. I trust that with the things I highlighted, you're able to pick out one or two things from here. But I would encourage that you find time in your leisure to watch the movie. I believe you get more than I have even highlighted in this video that would be helpful to you even as you journey through life. At the end of the day, all of this is in the hope that our testimonies will stand the test of time. I sincerely pray our testimonies stand the test of time. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for joining me yet again. I am Goodness Godfrey, and this is True Life Journey with Goodness Godfrey. Till I see you next week, by the grace of God, friends. Bye now.